Welcome back to The Rock Room and another episode of the Rock Your Divorce podcast, where we help men successfully navigate the divorce process in a healthy way. I'm your host, Stephen Valente. If you're like me, you may be struggling with thoughts of hopelessness or negativity. You may find yourself unable to quiet your mind, especially at night. You may feel lost or feel distracted about staying in the present moment. And this all may be leading to stress and anxiety in your life each and every day. If that sounds like you, then you are absolutely in the right place. Because in today's episode, we're going to talk about incorporating meditation into your daily practice and using that as an advantage during and after the divorce process. If that sounds like something you're interested in, then plug in, turn it up, and let's hit the stage. Okay, so as we talk about on this podcast, there are 7 key areas of your life that if you focus on them, or just some components of them, each and every day, you will not only be able to navigate this divorce process in a healthy way, but you will absolutely be able to thrive when it's done. The visual that I normally share is that of a 7-channel mixing board. And as I've described before, the 7 channels represent the 7 key areas of your life that we talk about here on this podcast. And the faders within those 7 channels represents the time, the effort, the energy, and quite frankly, the focus that you give each of those areas of your life during the day, during the week, or whatever. Today, we're going to focus on the second key area of your life, which is the mental portion of your life, your mental health. And this is really based on the idea of developing a daily mindfulness practice. So we're going to get a little bit into what mindfulness is, because I think that's important. But the whole idea of developing a daily mindfulness practice is those habits that you put into your day that help you develop the practice that we're talking about. And in this case, in today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about meditation. Okay, so some of the mistakes either that I made during my divorce process or folks that I see, the men that I coach or am coaching or have coached in the past deal with really goes down to a couple key pieces. The first one is, you have these thoughts, and these thoughts that are constantly going in your mind, almost to kind of an obsession or an obsessive nature. As I've talked about in the past, these thoughts seem to drive us to kind of circle the drain, right? We're recurring over and over again. We're thinking about things that had happened either during our marriage or what led up to the divorce, whether you filed for divorce or if it was your former spouse or soon-to-be former spouse. But it's all of these constant negative thoughts that drive you each and every day. And sometimes those thoughts move to worst case scenarios. And I've explained this on a couple other episodes where we as men tend to focus on the absolute worst case scenario that could occur in anything that we're dealing with, right? And, I'm sure that there's science behind that. I'm sure that there's psychology behind that. And we're not going to go into that today, although that would be an interesting episode. But I think that when we as men start at the worst case scenario, what I have found and what my experience has been is that allows us to kind of work our way back should something not actually happen in the way that we thought. We actually feel like the psychology behind that is we did better than expected, right? So maybe it's a coping mechanism. Maybe it's kind of that, let's think about the worst case, and as long as the worst case doesn't happen, then we're better off. But if the worst case does happen, which it could, then we've prepared for it, right? But again, these are thoughts that are swirling around in our mind, and they're leading to, maybe sometimes a loss of focus or a loss of mental clarity. We've talked about in the past that there are days that will go by and you'll be in a mental fog or a confusion. And you'll be highly distracted, right? So as these things go along, we have to really start thinking about how that confusion, that mental fog, that distance or distraction or whatever it is, what is it doing to us mentally, right? And, those are just some key feelings that if we as men don't get ourselves in a positive mental attitude, or if we don't have the ability to regulate those ideas that come into our head, our thoughts that come into our head, our memories that come into our head, that can take us to either those worst case scenarios. They can be a great distraction in our daily life, and they could cause a lot of problems, not only for ourselves, but for those that we love or in our job or whatever it is, right? The other thing that I'll say too is, and I had an episode related to negativity and removing negativity from our lives each and every day, making an intentional effort to remove negative influences in our life, mostly external, right? And putting positive influences in our life, positive practices in our life, and most importantly, positive repetitive habits that allow us to regain control of what's going on in our heads, regain what's going on within our emotions. And that allows us to take that day to day and be better off than we would if we just let our thoughts and emotions drive us, right? And a lot of those things that impact us, that influence it, whether it's positive or negative, happens to deal with external forces, right? Whether that's, we've talked about social media, we've talked about people, we've talked about, habits and routines that are negative, or places that we could go or have gone in the past, where that is a negative influence to us during this. And if we don't have a handle on it, and if we, don't put ourselves in situations where we are better off by not going there, not seeing those people, removing that negativity and replacing it with positive habits, healthy habits, things that we can do each and every day to regain that control of both our mental and emotional, that could be devastating to us. It could be crippling to us internally, but we could make choices not only for ourselves and our children, or the community that we live in or that we volunteer for, or even our profession, right? So, I really think that thinking about that daily mindfulness practice and putting things into play that maintain and even help this daily mindfulness practice is key to navigating the divorce in a healthy way, and especially thriving as we come out. One of the things, some of the statistics that I saw is that men are more likely, when you take a look at, if you compare men and women going through the same divorce, men are more likely to not get help, not have any support, not do healthy things, healthy habits, to get through this divorce. Men tend to, on average, and by the statistics, get into drugs, get into alcohol, get into reckless behaviors to have to deal with and try to cope with the thoughts and the feelings that are going on during this divorce time. And unfortunately, as men, if we don't find healthy coping mechanisms to do that, the divorce process as the statistics show, can be devastating for us, not only as we navigate that process, but as we move on and try to build our lives again and thrive afterwards. So again, those are mistakes that I've made. Those are mistakes that men that I have coached or am coaching have made or are making today that we're trying to change. And I think it all boils down to looking at, again, what is a habit, what is a routine that we can bring into our life that helps us build that daily mindfulness practice and helps us deal with all of these thoughts and mental emotions that are swirling around in our heads every day. So let's talk about what is meditation then, and how do we build it into our daily life? Okay, so just as a reminder, when we use the term mindfulness, when we say we have to develop a daily mindfulness practice, what does that mean? Well, we've had previous episodes regarding mindfulness, and we've mentioned it in several other episodes throughout the season so far. But let me just remind you of what it means. And mindfulness really is kind of this being present in the present moment, right? It's paying attention. It's being intentionally present in the moment that you're in. So you understand the thoughts that you're having. You understand and you're aware of the feelings that you're having. And you can mentally, without judgment, have those thoughts, have those feelings, and feel those emotions, right? But be present with it and understand what's going on. And I will tell you that it was really, really difficult for me to get that concept. Just because of, I like to say because of the way I was wired, or maybe trying to think too much, to think ahead, to be a couple steps ahead, and there's a lot of distraction, right? There's a lot of distraction in our world today, in our daily lives, whether that's phones, whether that's, we're sitting there talking to somebody and we have our phone out, we get a message, or something buzzes on my wrist, or an email comes through and I'm sitting on, a video call with my team. And we tend to try to, in essence, multitask throughout the day. And I am, for one, guilty of what I call hypertasking. And that is, it's not enough to multitask, you have to hypertask. And whereas I thought at one point in my life that was good, and I felt like I was becoming more and more efficient doing that, I will tell you that as I began to change my daily practice to really move toward mindfulness, I really realized that I was missing a lot of things each and every day, whether it was personal interactions, whether it was details, whether it was just experiencing the moment as it is. And I'll tell you here a story here in a minute about that. But I was missing that because I wasn't truly present. I was physically there. I was physically sitting in a room having a conversation, or sitting across the table at a dinner with my family or my kids or whatever it was. But was I really there, right? Or was my mind wandering? Was technology pulling me away? Were my thoughts, were my emotions, were my feelings somewhere else? Was I reliving something at that time that did not allow me to be truly present, right? So when we talk about mindfulness, and like I said, there's an episode on mindfulness, and there's conversations related to mindfulness practices, throughout the episodes of this podcast. But that's when I really felt like, okay, I was seeking ways of not only handling what was going on in my life during this divorce process, but I was really trying to find ways to be more mindful and more present. As I was looking around and I was listening to individuals that this idea of meditation kept popping up. Now, what I will tell you is that my idea of meditation may be similar to what you think meditation is. And I was wrong in thinking this, although there are parts of this that are correct. But, the idea of a Tibetan monk sitting bald in an orange robe outside or inside of an ashram was kind of what I was thinking that meditation would be. Whether it was, the humming or the bowls with the frequencies and all these other things. And although as I've researched more, I've talked to more people in dealing with certain things, there are parts of that meditation practice or those meditation practices that can be incorporated. But I personally was trying to build a mental resilience. I was trying to build a mental fortitude. I was trying to be more mindful and more intentional with everything that was going on in my life, not only before I decided to file for divorce, but definitely during that time. And I have continued that practice after everything was said and done now almost 5 years ago. So, as I looked for these ways to enhance my mental clarity, I also found that there were physical benefits, right? So the idea that I could do something each and every day, or maybe several times during the day when I felt stressed, or when I started to be anxious, or when these thoughts kept popping into my head, right? And where I found myself moving away from being present and in the moment and seeing and doing everything what I was doing there, my mind would wander. My mind would a thought would pop into my head. A scenario or a situation would kind of take over, and I found myself distracted. I found myself in a fog. I found myself kind of lost sometimes, trying to bring myself back around to that mindfulness. And really, I like to tell people, it's one of the hardest things that I've ever really tried to do. Now, I haven't tried to run a marathon, and those people that have run marathons say there's a physical and a mental part of that too. But it was really, really, and still continues to be to this day, a tough practice for me to do. And that's just because I think by and large, we as men our thoughts are going, and things pop into our heads. We're reminded of things throughout the day, or we're reminded when we pass a certain place, or we see a certain type of vehicle, right, that reminds of somebody or something that happened in our lives, in our marriage, whatever it is. And, it's hard for us to not have those come in and then know what to do with them. And I didn't want these thoughts or these emotions or these scenarios to distract me from what I was trying to do. Again, as I said just a few minutes ago, I was really trying to enhance my focus, my mental clarity. I was trying to build extreme mental resilience and fortitude. As men, we are innate to be problem solvers. We are inherent to be fixers. We are inherent to be logical processors and start thinking through things for a solution. And what I found was, by trying to incorporate this idea of meditation and what did that mean into my life, it was a learning process, and it's been a learning process, and it continues to be a learning process for me each and every day, because it is one of the hardest things that I've had to do. And really, when I start to take a look at kind of the how I did it, and we're gonna talk about the top kind of 4 things that you can do to incorporate meditation in your life. But personally, I utilized an app. And there are things that you can do, whether it's an app like Headspace, which is what I use, or there's Calm. There's some other ones on the market that you can put on. There are YouTube videos with guided meditation, right? So that who's ever guiding you through that kind of talks you through the meditation process. And then there are places that you can go, right? Like there are, local places that you can go in and either have guided meditation or you can do it on your own. But the way that I kind of learned meditation through the Headspace app was really to focus on your breath. And without going into all of the details related to specifics of meditation, which we could do in a future episode. In fact, I've already talked to a couple individuals that I'd really like to have here in the Rock Room and have a one-on-one dialogue about the actual process of meditation for all of you to hear and see. I personally, will take that time in the morning. And what I found going through the divorce process is that meditation for me was a great way to start the day, right? It helped me try to clear my mind and set that baseline of where I needed to be mentally with my thoughts, with some of those emotions, and kind of set the stage, no pun intended, for the day for me. And as I said before, I did find myself throughout the day, if thoughts would pop into my head, these worst case scenarios, negative thoughts, if I would see something, if I would hear something, if something would, in essence, trigger me to a thought or to an emotion that I needed to deal with right then and there, instead of letting it linger, instead of letting it distract me or pull me away from what I was doing, what I was focusing on, or being in that present moment, the ability for me to train my mind through meditation to accept that thought, accept that feeling or that emotion with no judgment, right? It's not good. It's not bad. It's not right. It's not wrong. It just is. And then be able to take it and let it go. Push it aside, let it go. I thought through it. Yep. Okay. No big deal. And I'm moving on. And as I got better at doing that, time after time after time, day after day after day, it was really easier. It's not easy, but it's easier to when those thoughts, when those emotions, when those negative things come in, instead of having them affect you in that way, you truly build a mental resilience, a mental fortitude to be able to deal with those thoughts, to deal with those emotions, and to deal with those feelings and not let them derail you throughout the day. The other side to that is, and I mentioned this before, is that because I was focusing on being in the present, being very intentional with where I am, what is going on in my life at that very moment, who am I with, what's the conversation, I wanted to be intentional about the time that I have right now, because you can't change the past. And any fears or any hopes or anything else of the future really is kind of a waste of time if you think about it. All you have here is right now and right here. And I was doing myself, as I said before, a disservice, and to not only myself, but to the people I was with, to the tasks I was doing, to the experiences that I was experiencing because my mind was somewhere else. And what led me to that inner exploration, what led me to that discovery, what led me to really wanting that heightened awareness of mindfulness through meditation was, and I remember this plain as day. My daughter, my youngest daughter at the time, she's still my youngest daughter, but my daughter at the time of my divorce, we had this zip line in the back of our house. And she would absolutely and totally love for me to push her up and down the zip line, what felt like for hours, right? And sometimes it was hours. And I remember being out there, we were going through the divorce process. My mind was, racing about all the things that needed to get done that day, things related to the divorce that was popping up. We were going to have to do something with the house. There was all this change. There was all this difficulty going on. And all of a sudden it hit me that I would not have the opportunity to be in this place, this specific place, pushing my daughter up and down the zip line ever again, right? Because I didn't know how the divorce was going to turn out. I didn't know how the custody was going to be arranged. I knew I wasn't going to be in that house, and we weren't going to have that exact zip line for her to play on. So all of a sudden, all of these thoughts, all of these emotions hit me. And I still have video. Actually, I took video of that from my phone on that day of me pushing her. And I thought that I have to remember this moment in time. I have to be here in the present to truly enjoy, to truly and intentionally take in these thoughts, these feelings, this wonderful memory that I had, because I was missing that while I was pushing her on this zip line. I was thinking about everything else. I was missing it. And I'm never going to get that chance again, right? So it hit me there, and that's what kind of drove me to the, trying to find things that made me more intentional about my mindfulness practice. How could I be more present? How could I truly be in that moment and not let all of the feedback, all of the noise, all of the chaos that was going on in my life at the time steal all of this wonderful God-given, blessings and favor and opportunity that I had in my life? How could it not take that away from me too, right? And that's what drove me to the idea of, okay, I need to find a way to build this resilience. I need to train my mind. I need to be able to put everything aside when it comes in and remain in the present moment so I can truly enjoy, I can truly savor, life as it happens to me now, because I don't want to look back in the past and, wonder what happened or not remember the wonderful, beautiful things that God gives us each and every day in our lives, even if they're super small, right? And how do I do that? Well, I need to train myself to be ready for the future when that happens. And that was building this meditation practice into my life. So, with all that being said, as I say, you are a rock star. So let's talk about how you as a rock star can incorporate meditation into your life and how that compares to real rock stars. As we say on the Rock Your Divorce podcast, you are a rock star. So how do you compare to a rock star when it comes to meditation? Well, think of it this way. First and foremost, every rock star goes through a pre-show work. We talked a little bit about sound checks. We talked a little bit about behind the scenes and documentaries and all those types of things in previous episodes when it comes to what do rock stars do before the shows, that when they come out and we witness them, or performers or whatever it is, right? So think of this kind of as a pre-show, your meditation, whether it's beginning of the day, setting yourself up, putting yourself in the right frame of mind, getting your emotions in check, and all of that prepared for calm, for clarity before the day starts. That's how we get to that place. Think of also how rock stars tune their instruments, right? And we've discussed in the past about how you, and in this case, your mind, is an instrument, right? It has to be tuned. It has to be taken care of. It has to make sure that it goes through all of these types of processes for it to perform in the best way that it's designed to perform. And you are no different, right? You are, and your mind is a tremendous instrument. And by working through meditation each and every day, you will absolutely and totally be able to set yourself up to use that instrument in the way that it was designed. Think about another aspect of the rock star or the rock band. Think about being in the present moment. What I try to tell my children when I take them to concerts now is don't pull out your phone, right? You can go on YouTube after this show is done, and there are going to be thousands of videos of that live performance. What I try to tell them today is put your phone away and be present in the moment of that show. Be present and truly appreciate, truly take in the experience that you are having right now at this concert or at this performance. And our lives are no different, right? On the other side to that is we've all been to shows where the performers don't really seem to be there, right? They're going through the motions. They're just kind of playing the gig, and they're not bringing that true intentional experience, being in the present moment at the present time to the energy of the show. And I'll guarantee you felt it just like I have. So don't be that kind of rock star. When we talk about rock stars and we talk about rehearsals and we talk about how rehearsals for rock stars and meditation for us each and every day is kind of that being prepared to hit the stage, right? The practice, right? The repetition, the habit. As we get stronger in building our meditation practice, as we get stronger in building our mindfulness practice and our mindset and being able to deal with those thoughts, deal with those emotions, and have those thoughts and emotions not derail us, we're getting stronger. And that's where this mindfulness practice comes in. This is where being in a band, being in a rehearsal, and making sure that everything that you're experiencing in rehearsal comes out in the performance, right? The practice, the habits, the repetition will all show when you hit the stage, in this case, the stage of life, and you'll be able to perform at your highest level. And lastly, when we talk about kind of this inner dialogue that meditation brings to us, think of that as kind of the behind the music or the music documentaries that I've mentioned in the past, and where we can see kind of behind the curtain, backstage with rock stars, with rock bands, with performances, and how that affects us. This, as men, will serve as a backstage pass to what's going on in our minds as we're meditating through all of that. So with that being said, now that I've compared you as a rock star to real rock stars and rock bands on what meditation means, let's talk about the 4 quick ways that you can incorporate meditation into your life. So here are the 4 things that you need to do to incorporate meditation into your daily mindfulness practice. The first thing is to find a practice that works for you. Personally, I use Headspace. There's lots of different apps out there. You can either go to YouTube, or if you have a local meditation studio, feel free to go there too. But whatever it is, find the practice that works best for you. The second thing that you're going to do is you're going to make a time for this meditation practice. I personally did it in the mornings to start the day, but I also found myself at times meditating at shorter intervals throughout the day based on what I was facing, Regardless of the time, you just need to pick not only the best time of the day that works for you, which is when you're not distracted, but also you may find yourself needing to do that throughout the day, which is perfectly okay. But make the time to do it. And not only make the time to do it, but make the time to do it consistently. That's the third thing that you need to do. You have to be consistent about incorporating meditation into your daily mindfulness routine. It doesn't do you any good, and the practice of meditation won't do anything for you if you're doing it on an irregular basis. So make the time to do it and do it consistently, and I promise you, you're going to see the results. And lastly, the fourth thing, you have to incorporate what you learn in your daily mindfulness routine and through meditation into your daily life, into your daily practice. You aren't going to do yourself any favors, or it's not going to get any better if you just take meditation for what it is, maybe 5 or 10 or 15 minutes in a day, and then you go on with your day and you do everything else like you used to do before you started meditation. The whole idea is to train your mind in mindfulness, in resilience, and in fortitude, so that what you learn during your meditation practice, you can apply throughout the entire day. So that's how you're going to incorporate meditation into your daily mindfulness practice and ultimately into your life, not only through the divorce process, but well after it's done. If anything that I've said to you today resonates with you or it strikes a chord, I encourage you to go to www.rockyourdivorce.com, sign up for a free 30-minute phone call with me, because I know that I can help you not only navigate this divorce process in a healthy way, but I can help you thrive afterwards. While you're there, I ask that you like and subscribe to the Rock Your Divorce podcast. And if you know any man who has either started this divorce process or is currently going through it, or they've recently gone through it and they're not yet quite healed and thriving, I encourage you to send them here to the Rock Room and to the Rock Your Divorce podcast. That's it for today's episode. I thank you for listening, and I can't wait to see you here again in the Rock Room for another episode of the Rock Your Divorce podcast.